My father said, "George, never forget what the little white chicken did for the Leader family." I'm trying to honor my father's wish that we not forget it. My father was an only child. He was very close to his mother. And they used to send away and buy a setting of hatching eggs. They'd get 13 eggs for a dozen, and they'd put them under a brooding hen, and she'd hatch them, and she'd raise those baby chicks. And then my father did that repeatedly with his mother, and they had some considerable success. My dad wanted to go to college, but his father wouldn't send him. Said he couldn't afford it. So Dad took the test at 17 to become a country school teacher, and he passed the test. So at 17 he was teaching a country school. But when he reached his early 40s, he had what they call rheumatism in those days. I guess it was like rheumatic fever, which affected his heart and everything else. And he couldn't walk the 1.5 or 2 miles to the school and back because he wasn't physically able. So he retired from being a country school teacher, and it took what had been just a sideline with him, raising and breeding chickens, and made that a career. My father's hatchery, he sold 1 million to 1.25 million baby chicks a year, which back in those days was a large volume. Probably one of the larger volumes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We didn't live high on the hog, but we were always well provided for. And we always knew we were going to go to college. We learned from my father wanted to go to college and couldn't go, and he was determined that his children would have that chance. Mother had the work ethic to a greater degree than anyone I've ever known. We had about a 2-acre garden. We had a big family, 7 children, and we raised our own vegetables, and Mother canned them all. We had to help her. We helped to plant it, we helped to weed it, we helped to hoe it, we helped to harvest it, we helped to shell the peas and the beans. And so we worked very close with my mother, who didn't have a great education, but she taught us how to work from the time we were 10 years old or less. And it was a great training. I think the fact that I'm still working at age 94 is an indication of just how much influence my mother had on my life. A lot of people thought that I was just a chicken farmer who didn't know much about government, but they didn't realize I'd gone to the Fells Institute of Local and State Government at the University of Pennsylvania, where I graduated, number 1. Number 2, I had 3 years in the Navy as an officer, and I learned how to function in a large organization. Line and staff were not a mystery to me. I had worked line and staff positions in the Navy for 3 years. It was a great training. We had 69,000 people in the state government at that time. It didn't bother me. I was accustomed to big outfits. I felt very comfortable in the governor's office. When you get into government, you can select your team. I had 52 people, and I'd say 45 of them were professionals that reported to me. And they say, "Well, how'd you relate to them?" I said, "I developed a superficial knowledge of most everything, and when I didn't know, I called on them for their input. You're only as smart as the people around you." She's a very well-rounded, polished human being. She was modest. She didn't always admire my outspokenness, because especially when I was telling everyone how great I was, she'd say, "George, that's enough. That's enough, George. They've learned enough about you. They've heard all about you, as much about you as they want to hear." She was my wife, my partner in marriage, and my partner in the business. And she was a tremendous help to me in the nursing home field. In running a long-term care facility, if you don't get the proper leadership at the top, forget it. It just never takes off. You got to start with an administrator who makes 100 decisions a day, maybe all of them minor, but added together, they set the tone of the place that makes you a success. When you got little baby chicks like this, and you have 1,000 of them to take care of, they're very sensitive. If you don't take good care of them, they will literally die. So you learn how to take responsibility for a very fragile life right on the poultry farm. And somehow it gives you a sense of respect for life. The challenge in running good long-term care facilities is everybody tries to serve good meals. Everybody tries to meet the physical needs of the resident. That's what we get paid for. But I try to establish places where there's love and compassion and sufficient supply to go around.